My entire life, my whole world was shattered. And it all began the day those mysterious towers shot up from the ground. Nobody knew their origin or purpose, but their sinister aura quickly earned them a fitting name, the Nightmare Towers. Soon these towers began to randomly select people, offering them a chance to become tower walkers and save humanity. Those who answered the call were instantly teleported inside. To get them started, the system interface gifted them battle gear, unlocking superhuman strength and skills just like in an RPG. But here's the terrifying catch: this was no game. For everyone left on the outside, life was about to become a living nightmare. The towers unleashed hordes of monsters upon the world in what was later called a tower impact. Humanity tried to fight back, but that first wave alone wiped out nearly 30% of the entire population. The tower walkers trapped inside could only watch in horror as the world burned and their loved ones perished. Since they weren't clearing the monsters inside the tower, the floors became completely overrun, and eventually the creatures broke through to the real world. To finally make a difference, the walkers decided to climb the tower using their newfound powers to hunt down every last monster. But the tower was clever. To tempt them to break their will, it offered an almost irresistible opportunity, an item known as the regression stone. Just as its name implies, this stone allowed a walker to return to the past right before the first tower impact, with all their memories and experiences perfectly intact. Some jumped at the chance without a second thought, while the more cautious ones felt something was off about the whole deal. And they were right. Turns out using the stone didn't actually rewind time. Instead, it transported them to a parallel universe, a completely different timeline. So anyone who regressed wasn't saving this world at all. They were simply abandoning it, and as more walkers gave up, things got worse, especially after the second tower impact. Faced with a gruesome death by monster, many chose to take the easy way out and abandon their world. The fate of this reality now rested on the shoulders of a few brave souls who resisted the temptation of the regression stone. But what awaited them was a brutal end on the 98th floor of the Chamber of Hellfire. Juan and his comrades were utterly defeated, yet they fought to their very last breath. In the end, our boy managed to slay the Tower Guardian, but it cost him everyone he cared about. Even his one and only best friend chose to regress with his dying breath. It shattered Juan's heart to see his friend make such a tragic choice, but our main character's resolve never wavered. He pressed onward alone, finally reaching the 99th floor, where he came face to face with its guardian, the frostworm Vilicis. For 10 long years, he's been stuck on this floor fighting that same monstrosity. The 98th floor nearly broke him, but he knows he'd be long dead without the gear his former friends left behind. Right now, he's taking a break back on the lower floors, visiting a blacksmith by the name of Jay. The blacksmith is stunned, asking if our protagonist really intends to challenge that beast again. Juan confirms it without a hint of hesitation. He's not giving up until he sees this through to the very end. For a bit of context, some time ago, walkers reclaimed a village on the 50th floor after defeating the dragon that ruled it. That village is now known as Apos, and out of all the blacksmiths who used to live there, Jay is the only one left. Jay feels pretty down about it since the demand for ore from the lower floors has practically vanished. Juan thinks to himself that this was inevitable. After all, there are hardly any survivors left to place an order. Jay pauses, then asks if he's noticed anything unusual while traveling the tower lately. Juan immediately remembers the spot where the regression stone was found. He recalls the strange markings on its surface etched in a language he couldn't decipher. But when Jay asks, he simply says he saw nothing. His thoughts wander to Hiron, an old woman who vanished just yesterday. Until then, she and Jay had been the last supporters in Apos. Pushing the thought aside, Juan makes a direct request: "Teach me how to be a blacksmith." This sudden career change makes the smith freeze mid-hammer swing. Flash forward, and our boy is back on the 98th floor, ready for another round with that cocky dragon. The beast actually compliments the lone walker, calling him the pioneer, who managed to reach the 99th floor all by himself. That dragon might have a tough hide, but our hero has already started to slowly chip away at its thick scales. He doesn't care how many tries it takes. He's prepared to die and return over and over again until this monster is defeated for good. One attempt ends with him being completely crushed, leaving him battered and broken. At this point, even the mighty dragon has to respect the fiery determination burning inside this human. Juan is driven by a singular, unyielding obsession to defeat this monster and give meaning to his friend's sacrifices. The dragon scoffs, claiming failure is his only destiny. But after breaking free from the ice, our boy lunges forward, ready to prove that overgrown lizard wrong. He gets into his stance once more, relying on the only technique in his arsenal, piercing. The dragon almost finds it amusing that this kid keeps trying the same simple trick. You have to understand Zhuan didn't have a head start like the other walkers. He missed out on all the early opportunities for unique skills and hidden classes. With nothing else to his name, Zhuan poured his entire being into mastering one simple, devastating move, the art of the pierce. He practiced that one thrust relentlessly, repeating it tens of millions of times, a dedication that earned him quite a few nicknames. His piercing attack became faster, stronger, and impossibly precise, evolving into something that could rival a hidden class skill. And since it's not an official skill, Zhuan can use it as much as he wants without draining any spiritual energy. Still, even hundreds of thousands of strikes weren't enough to cause any real damage, but then Zhuan spots it. The dragon's weak point is its jaw. The very second the dragon opens its mouth to unleash an icy blast, Zhuan seizes his chance. He thrusts his spear straight up from inside, obliterating one of its eyes and shattering half its jaw. He had poured every ounce of his power into that last strike, but it still wasn't enough to shatter the monster's core. Getting serious now, the dragon soared into the sky, unleashing a merciless storm of ice. Jaewon dodged the initial volleys, but the sheer volume of the assault quickly overwhelmed him. Looking down, the dragon scoffed at his struggle, absolutely certain that a mere tower walker could never defeat a beast of its caliber. It mused that things might have been different if a whole team of fighters like Jaewon had challenged it together. But that's exactly why the dragon was so pleased. The foolish humans had all fallen for the trap of the nightmare stones. Hearing this, Jaewon's eyes widened, demanding to know what it meant. Instead of answering, the monster simply started crushing everything in sight, forcing Jaewon to make a tactical retreat. His health points were dangerously low. A single graze would have been game over. But now he was more curious than ever. He had to find out about these nightmare stones and what secrets that dragon held. To get those answers, he spent 5 long years battling that same monster. Finally, his dedication paid off. The nightmare of the 99th floor was finally slain, and its victor stood atop the beast's fallen body. With its life fading, Jaewon demanded the truth about the nightmare stones, but the dragon refused to give him a straight answer. It cryptically told him he could only learn the truth by reaching the final floor. With those parting words, the monster perished, leaving our hero with the ice dragon sword as his reward. Though, to be fair, calling this thing a sword felt like a bit of a stretch. And now the moment of truth had arrived. The door to the final floor materialized before him. Jaewon stepped through without a shred of fear, ready to face whatever lay on the other side. He found himself in a strange space, filled with countless floating panels of light, each one showing a different scene. He could see the state of the tower from the outside and even glimpses of the apocalypse. Suddenly, a voice from nowhere commented that he'd arrived a bit early, telling him to relax. The unseen figure then sent him an important announcement, and a system window popped up. It congratulated our hero for being the first person in World 294 to clear the game's tutorial. The message continued, stating his achievement would be immortalized in the Akashic records, where even the monarchs of the Great Land could view his progress. As he read this, all the horrific memories from the tower flooded his mind, and now he was being told it was all just a tutorial. The mysterious voice noted his shock, warning him not to dwell on it too much, or he'd face some serious consequences. A colossal wave of water slammed into Jaewon as a beast with glowing eyes emerged. The creature remarked that he'd come further than he should have, yet praised his control for a mere human. But the praise was cut short. The beast stopped mid-sentence as our protagonist rose, completely unharmed from the water. The figure seemed surprised at how quickly Jaewon recovered, noting it was much faster than it had anticipated. Unfazed, Jaewon demanded to know who it was. The being just laughed, admitting it got a little carried away and forgot its manners. It told Jaewon he should be incredibly proud, as he was the first in history to reach the 100th floor all alone. At last, it revealed its name. Beast Rain, the demon ruler of the Nightmare Tower. Our hero, however, couldn't get past the fact that this was all a tutorial. He asked if that meant there was a real game up ahead. The demon confirmed he was right, but before they proceeded, it wanted to show him something. With a snap of Beast Rain's fingers, scenes from Jaewon's journey began to play out. Our boy watched as the memories unfolded, beginning with the day Seo first joined his party. He saw himself laughing alongside Seo and Yunan, the three of them introducing themselves, fighting together as a real team. Then the happy memories gave way to darkness. He saw Seo's wounded body on the ground as he knelt beside her, calling her name. He then witnessed Yunan's final moments. As he watched, Beast Rain asked if he could feel the sadness welling up inside him. The demon called those feelings a waste, but then made a cruelly tempting offer. He offered a chance to return to the very beginning, a chance to start all over again, but this time with all of his memories intact. Beast Rain's grin stretched wider as Jaewon understood. This wasn't the end of his journey at all, but but the system prompt in front of him was no gift. It was a trap. All this time, he thought he could save the world by climbing the tower. He remembered the system calling him the chosen one, destined to be a savior. But from the very start, there was never any way to stop the tower's impact. They had all been tricked into this climb. Saving humanity was supposed to be their one true goal. Jaewon slammed the reject button, declaring with absolute certainty that he would never go back. Beast Rain mocked his choice, saying, "No one can change the past." Regression was impossible in both the tower and the Great Land. The name Stone of Regression flashed in Jaewon's mind, but the demon shattered that hope, immediately explaining the stone was never what people thought it was. In reality, it was the Nightmare Stone, a cursed gem that traps anyone who uses it in an endless dream controlled by a dream demon. The demon's words cut like a knife as it laughed. Humans are probably the only creatures foolish enough to fall for such a simple trick. All the pieces clicked into place. The main game Beast Rain mentioned wasn't a new beginning. It was an endless repeating loop. Without a moment of hesitation, Jaewon pressed no. He declared firmly that he had already figured out the tower's true secret. The tower itself was just another dream. With his mind made up, our protagonist swore he would hunt Beast Rain down and ascend to the true next floor. Beast Rain insisted that the tower ended right here, but our hero completely ignored him, refusing to even entertain the lie. The demon switched tactics to taunting, suggesting that maybe Jaewon was just greedy, wanting more than simple memories as his final reward. He then dangles the ultimate temptation, hidden treasures. But our boy Jaewon doesn't even give it a second thought. Beast Rain wonders if he truly wants to return home, pointing out that Jaewon must have sensed the truth that this tower is just a dream and reveals the bombshell. None of this is actually real. Jaewon immediately demands to know what he's talking about, so Beast Rain conjures a vision, showing everyone outside completely safe and sound. The demon explains that beings like him live in clusters, cheerfully adding that this should all be great news for our hero as he switches the vision to a different scene. This time, Jaewon sees himself in a hospital room looking down at his own comatose body, with all the other walkers lying in beds right beside him. And while Jaewon spent what felt like decades in the tower, Beast Rain explains that in the real world, only 1 month has gone by. The demon puffs out his chest again, boasting that our hero could never defeat him, comparing the power gap to that between a mighty dragon and a mere human. Jaewon simply raises his sword with a smirk, declaring he's already slain a dragon. This makes Beast Rain snarl at his arrogance, and in the next instant, the two collide with explosive force. Sometime later, Jaewon steps into a building and calls out for Jae. Hearing nothing but silence, his mind wanders back to his countless duels with Beast Rain. A whole 72 days have passed, and he's never once landed a finishing blow. But strangely, in all that time, the demon never finished him off either. And now it finally clicks for our boy Beast Rain never planned on killing him at all. With this new understanding, our protagonist vows to see this through no matter how long it takes. Meanwhile, Beast Rain is stressing out over Jaewon, his product. He's like a prize seed that just refuses to grow the way it's supposed to. The process is usually so simple. You just pick the best seeds during the tutorial, give them some nurturing in the main game, and watch them blossom. But this particular seed is a stubborn one, resisting every attempt to help it grow. The demon briefly considers just getting rid of him, but the thought of damaging the soul and attracting the attention of the harvesters makes him shudder. So he decides on a new strategy: raise him with care and make a fortune. He daydreams of climbing the ranks and paying off all his debts, especially since even the gods who normally avoid demons have taken an interest in Jaewon. Suddenly, Jaewon ambushes him from behind Beast Rain, demands to know his real goal, but our hero just keeps on swinging, not even stopping to chat. The demon tries to talk some sense into him, insisting that moving on to the main game would be a huge win for him and everyone he knows. But Jaewon couldn't look less interested if he tried. Their battle rages on, fiercer than ever, until Beast Rain finally slams him into the ground and starts yelling again, offering every hidden skill and legendary item he has if Jaewon will just cooperate. Our hero, however, is determined to keep hunting him down. Just as Beast Rain's patience runs out, Jaewon finally speaks up, saying he has a question. A bit later, Beast Rain starts explaining that the universe is composed of multiple dimensions, but Jaewon just cuts him off, casually saying he already knows because they have theories like that back on Earth. The demon pushes on anyway, describing the Great Land as the main dimension, which is surrounded by countless smaller frontier worlds like Earth, also known as World 294. He explains that the Nightmare Tower is basically a training ground, helping walkers gain skills and get used to the system so they can travel between these worlds. And demons like him are managers helping walkers through the games. But when Jaewon asks why they do it, Beast Rain dodges the question, wondering aloud why the tower appeared on World 294 of all places. He reveals that this world was chosen completely by random chance. Our protagonist doesn't fall for the distraction and interrupts again, demanding to know the demon's real reason for running this game. Beast Rain tries to laugh it off, claiming he's just a volunteer, but Jaewon isn't buying it and presses harder, asking what rewards he's really getting. The demon just offers up some vague excuses about having different motives. But before their back and forth can continue, a bright red message from the monarch suddenly appears over Beast Rain's head, ordering him not to kill Jaewon and to end this conversation at once. The demon, however, is completely oblivious to the message and turns back to Jaewon, smugly asking if he believes him now. Jaewon just gives him a silent stare. A look at his status screen would show it's completely maxed out. Every single stat is at its peak, and his level is capped. No matter how hard he tries or how much effort he puts in, his numbers just won't budge. He chugs another potion and gets right back up. Even with all this incredible power, that gap between him and Beast Rain just doesn't seem to be closing. Then suddenly something clicks in his mind and a strange new feeling washes over him. Looking around, he notices brilliant golden particles floating all through the air. He reaches out and catches one, observing how they can be fine and smooth, or sometimes rough and blocky like sugar cubes. In that instant, our protagonist grasps the truth. He's seeing the raw data, the very source particles that make up the fabric of this world. Now facing Beast Rain again, Jaewon casually wonders aloud what a monarch is, guessing it's just a fancy title for a king. Noticing his curiosity, Beast Rain explains that monarchs are the rulers of the great land, and anyone who clears the main game earns a special recommendation from one of them. Our inquisitive hero then asks what that recommendation is for. Beast Rain replies that his entire future will depend on which monarch he decides to follow. He even adds that if Jaewon just puts his trust in him, he'll personally make sure he serves under the best monarch out there. Beast Rain practically stakes his honor on it, promising to guide him safely into the main game if our hero will just shake on it. After a moment of thought, the swordsman remarks that Beast Rain sounds an awful lot like an insurance salesman. Even so, Jaewon agrees to play along, adding that in exactly 10 days he'll be leaving this place. 9 days later, our protagonist is deep in focused training. Beast Rain watches on his monitor, noting that he's been doing the same thing all day and that their time is almost up. His thoughts turn bitter as he remembers how those dream demons scammed him into buying this low-quality tower in the first place. He growls to himself, cursing those swindlers. He recalls how he jumped at the deal the second he heard it was built by an expert-level demon. But the reality hit hard when he found out it was just a first-generation antique with no production year listed. If he'd gotten a third-generation tower, Beast Rain could have just forced the tutorial to end without harming the product. But this outdated piece of junk requires the player's consent to close the game. The demon figured his only real crime was being too broke to afford the premium package. Still, the cheap setup worked, and with morning just around the corner, he prayed this would all finally be over. The next day dawned, and the system began flashing tips for the main game mentioning the Tree of Illusion and the Great Land. Then a final message popped up from the Game Master offering to send Jaewon back to World 294 with all his memories intact. Beast Rain asked him, "Did you memorize all the data?" Our boy simply confirmed he had. "Then hurry up and hit accept," the demon pleaded. Tears of pure joy streamed down his face as the moment he'd waited for had finally arrived. But to his absolute shock, Jaewon suddenly swung his sword. Beast Rain froze solid, demanding to know what on earth he thought he was doing. Our protagonist's grip on his sword tightened. "You should already know the answer," he said coolly. "I'm going to hunt you down." Ever since Jaewon saw those particles, his pierce technique had felt unstable, like something was off. It felt as if a new power was awakening deep inside him. A massive claw came crashing down toward our hero, who met it with a powerful strike of his own. "I've never seen anyone like you," Beast Rain admitted. "If this had happened earlier, things would have been so much simpler for both of us." In a flash, shadowy tendrils shot out and coiled tightly around Jaewon, locking him completely in place. Our boy just smirked, pointing out the game couldn't end without his say-so. Beast Rain laughed, revealing he'd given up on getting consent a long time ago. "Besides," he mused, "why do you think this tutorial will never end?" He explained that the Tower of Nightmares is programmed to automatically end 100 days after the tutorial is cleared. With that, Beast Rain decided to just leave our protagonist tied up until it was time to play the main game. But Jaewon just tightened his grip on his sword. "Beast Rain," he called out, "I know you're the trickster. 784 years old, you visited 128 worlds, cultivating the species in each one. The Tower Master was completely stunned. How could you possibly know all of that? He demanded. Our hero wasn't done yet. And you were going to hand me over to Harvester, the monarch of darkness. Beast Rain began to sweat buckets. Who are you? He panicked. Our protagonist grinned. I'm the product you've been cultivating here for decades. In the next instant, he unleashed a massive wave of energy aiming to obliterate the Tower Master. Jaewon charged forward with everything he had, his blade striking Beast Rain directly and sending him flying backward as their powers clashed violently. The impact sent our boy skidding back, but Beast Rain was left with an injured shoulder. The demon stared in confusion until a horrifying thought suddenly clicked in his mind. As our protagonist readied his sword, Beast Rain wondered if he was an over-adapted player. Our boy recalled thinking the exact same thing since he reached the 100th floor. Could this demon even kill him anymore? The very fabric of reality began to fray. He finally understood the true essence of the stab to strike without a single shred of doubt. He slammed his sword into his opponent's shield, shattering it completely. A system notification popped up, sync limitation lifted. In response, the demon transformed his body, unleashing his full power to try and force Jaewon's surrender. As Beast Rain attacked, he had to admit he was impressed. To reach the second stage of adaptation right after the tutorial, incredible, but a mere human can't defeat a demon. He roared, unleashing a storm of deadly spikes. The spikes tore into Jaewon's body, but he didn't stop. He just clenched his sword and decided to stab his opponent no matter what. He kept attacking the count, climbing higher and higher until it hit a mind-boggling 10 billion times. At last, Jaewon landed a devastating blow on the demon, forcing his opponent to realize the truth. But it was far too late for Beast Rain to do anything. Our protagonist had already won, and his sword was pointed right at the demon's throat. He stated confidently, "Humans are not just things for demons to trade and sell." With absolute resolve, Jaewon declared he would destroy the tower climb to the next floor and then all the way to the top. The ceiling above began to shatter as he shouted, "I will see the end of the world you demons have created." A system window popped up, his info filled with nothing but question marks. Beast Rain scrambled away in pure desperation, pleading with him not to do it. "There's nowhere left to go," he cried. Our hero wasn't listening. His mind flashed back to the carvings he'd found on the lower floors, which revealed that the nightmare towers were just imitations of the first nightmare located at the top of the Tree of Illusion. He realized these messages had been left by the creator of the Nightmare Tower himself, a being named Muak. Now our boy understood. This place was just a root, and if a root exists, so must a branch. With that, he unleashed his power and completely destroyed the ceiling. A system prompt appeared, tutorial over. But another line followed, game completion failed. A moment later, Jaewon woke up in a brand new place, something like a forest. He looked ahead and saw what he'd been looking for. Just then, massive beasts burst from the trees, growling as they surrounded him. One of them leaped to attack, but he took it out effortlessly with his shallow stab skill. Suddenly, the ground rumbled as a truly gigantic beast stepped out. Seeing it, our boy knew right away his shallow stab wouldn't be nearly enough for something this huge. Using his normal stab, he eliminated the towering beast in a single strike. Afterwards, he got busy collecting all of its horns. Out of nowhere, a shout echoed through the trees. Strange ant-like people appeared, and one of them was pointing right at him. Jaewon figured they were after the horns, so he held one out as an offering for some answers, but nobody moved. Instead, the one in the lead charged at him with a blade our protagonist dodged, easily warning them to chill out, or he'd have to take care of them all. When they kept attacking anyway, he decided to put them down. A few moments later, all of the ant-like people were lying unconscious on the ground. While our boy was sitting on one of them, demanding answers, the creature bit down on its own tongue, leaving him staring in shocked silence. A little later, Jaewon started going through their things and found a small dimensional backpack. The system explained it would give him 70 cubic feet of space to store his belongings. He couldn't help but notice that the system hadn't been working right since he escaped the Tower of Nightmares. He had just assumed it would function the same in every world, even in the Great Realm, but that clearly wasn't the case. While searching, our protagonist also found some strange, colorful stones they were carrying. A quick check revealed they were soul stones that enhance spiritual power, a fact he learned thanks to his suspicion skill. Every single enemy dropped one of these gems. Why, were they running a jewelry business on the side? He just shrugged, stuffing the loot in his bag without a second thought. His sword then opens its monstrous jaw, devouring the fallen bodies in a single gulp. Just then he spots an old, unassuming scroll. It looked like nothing, but a strange feeling made him stop. As Jaewon unrolls it, two words stare back at him. tree of imagery and chaos. He was certain this info wasn't in the files Beast Rain had sent. Elsewhere, the very ground begins to tremble as fanged monstrosities burst from the earth. And running for their lives from the rampage is a girl with fiery red hair leading a small party. She hurls a weapon that completely misses its target, and instead smacks a tall red-haired guy right in the knee. He stumbles, trying to laugh it off, wondering how her aim could be that bad. She yells a quick apology followed by another one. But this sorry wasn't for her teammate. It was for the two-horned beast barreling right up behind her. She sprints toward two of her friends who are screaming for her to stop, but she ignores them completely. From a ledge above, Jaewon watches the chaos unfold, noticing right away that the fiery redhead is the strongest of the bunch, but their teamwork was an absolute disaster. He couldn't help but wonder how they ever survived the Tower of Nightmares. The red-haired warrior finally leaps into action, flames erupting around him. The girl joins in with a grin, but her first reckless swing nearly takes her teammate's head off. He dodges and yells at her, but she just shrugs without a care in the world. And that's when our hero decides to make his entrance, dropping in from the sky. In one fluid motion, Jaewon plunges his sword straight through the monster's skull. With a spray of blood, the massive beast collapses to the ground. As he lands, he's met with the intense glare of the red-haired warrior. Once the dust settles, the girl's friends stroll over to Jaewon and casually ask if he minds if they take the kill. Her friend seems hesitant, though, whispering that the horn alone is probably worth a fortune. They explain that it usually takes 10 people to take down a two-horned beast. Our hero says nothing, but he recalls that the monster he killed earlier had 5 horns. He quickly puts it together. More horns must mean more power. The red-haired girl marches up to him, demanding to know who he is. She declares that in all of Chaos, no one can one-shot a two-horned beast. She presses him for an answer, asking where he even came from. Jaewon just looks her right in the eye and asks, what's Chaos? The girl completely freezes, stunned that he has no idea what she's talking about. The red-haired warrior steps in, firing off a list of questions. What was his name? Why was he here? And how could he even understand their language? But Jaewon's responses were simple and to the point. Shishwai just a few nods and shakes of his head. They start murmuring among themselves about how odd a language barrier is these days. When the red-haired man asks if they can take the corpse, our hero simply agrees. Meanwhile, the red-haired woman studies him. His technique was strange. It wasn't skill, just raw power in a single stab. She tries to use an ability on him, but a system message immediately pops up. Skill failed. In Gan, it says his spiritual power is as low as a non-adapter's. She gets in his face again, demanding answers. Who is he, and why is an unadapted player like him wandering around Chaos? Our protagonist just repeats the word back at her, Chaos. She accuses him of playing games, insisting he's not making sense. Can't you understand me? She asks, frustrated. But Jaewon calmly replies that he understands perfectly. His mind then drifts for a moment, remembering his old life and connections back on Earth. He realizes that none of that mattered. The second he stepped inside the tower, he'd made new friends in there, but those memories were erased after the tutorial. They're still alive on Earth somewhere, but they probably don't even remember his name. He turns back to the girl and says, I don't remember anything. She scoffs, not buying it for a second. And you expect me to believe you have amnesia? Our protagonist coolly replies, I never said I had amnesia. Chudas. She argues that it's the same thing and keeps pushing him for answers. Suddenly his sword begins to hum strangely before its jaws creak open once more. The red-haired girl's eyes go wide. She instantly recognizes it as a spirit weapon. The sword starts chomping on the weapons from Jaewon's backpack. The others stare, muttering about him feeding his blade. The girl is just stunned. He's showing off a spirit weapon with absolutely no idea what he's doing. She's clearly furious that this clueless guy just ruined her secret mission to get rid of the red-haired man. But then an idea sparks in her mind. She leans in and whispers that she has a proposal. A little while later, our hero finally learns her name is Mino. He also gets the rundown on her so-called friends. Turns out they all belong to the Red Fox clan. Jaewon connects the dots immediately. Her proposal is for him to wipe out the entire clan for her, and she even warns that they'll be coming for him next anyway. That night, the red-haired man suggests they camp to avoid attracting beasts, but our protagonist notes that a village isn't very far away. He overhears the Red Fox members talking. They're convinced he only killed the beast because of his fancy spirit weapon. They claim that weapons like that can only be found in the abyss, which they call the branches of the Tree of Illusion. Our hero knows they're wrong since his weapon came from the roots. The demon did say the tower's gear was junk, but he never thought anyone would actually want this thing. In any case, he's figured one thing out: this place is no paradise. And right on cue, the enemy makes its move. Mino appears out of nowhere to warn him, telling him to use his powered-up sword to take them all down. But he casually replies that he doesn't have it anymore. He lent it out. She absolutely loses it, calling him a careless moron. Just then, the Red Fox clan appears and surrounds them. The red-haired man smirks, thanking Jaewon for the weapon. The others grumble about being called out for just 2 people. Mino spits a curse at them, and as they charge, she dashes forward to meet them. She smashes one across the head and lands a clean strike right across another's torso. In a flash, she takes down several foes, kicking one backward with practiced ease. After launching another dagger, she lands with a sly grin, playfully apologizing for throwing her weapon so hard. Then, with a flick of her wrist, more daggers materialize around her to deal with the last of the enemies. The red-haired man remarks that from the moment Mino lured the monsters, he knew something was off. But now he is absolutely positive she is the infamous Witch of Massacre. He demands to know who would dare send an assassin from the Dark Forest all the way out here. She answers plainly, saying it doesn't matter who sent her. The Red Fox clan has murdered countless non-adapters, and many people want them gone. He just scoffs positive the Dark Forest clan would never make a move for such a trivial reason. Before he can finish his thought, her daggers shoot toward him in a surprise attack, but he instantly parries the blow. He declares this can only be a personal mission. Raising his spirit weapon, he informs her that if that's the case, her life is officially forfeit. She narrows her eyes at him, but he calmly explains that he didn't exactly come unprepared. He brought backup. She scans the area and sees he's not bluffing. She quickly realizes every single one of them is at least a first-stage adapter. When she does a quick head count, there are 40 in total. The red-haired man boasts that facing both the Witch of the Dark Forest and a man who single-handedly killed a 2-horned beast required this many soldiers. He then adds that if he had known the spirit weapon would be so easy to get, he never would have called his master. As if on cue, a massive clawed figure appears, telling her to consider this an honor. This newcomer is Clant, the Black Fox Master of the Red Fox clan, and a third-stage adapter. He announces that half of his entire clan has gathered here today just to hunt her. She just gives them a mocking smile in return. Turning to Juan, she tells him to give her a minute. She tosses something his way, telling him to run. He catches it and discovers a nightmare stone in his hand. Confused, our hero asks what it is. She explains it's an escape stone that will teleport him to the closest fortress, but it's the only one she has. He stays quiet for a beat, then asks if she would go back to the past if she could. She calmly replies that she would never go back. If she dies here, so be it, but returning to the past is not an option. Juan looks her in the eye and assures her she won't be dying today. With that, he springs into action, using his second sword to cut down enemies in quick succession. Right then, a devastating attack slams onto the battlefield as the Fire King unleashes his ultimate technique. Still, our protagonist charges head-on, activating Oblivion, the third stage of his awakening. He slices clean through the incoming wave of pure fire and force. Their attacks collide, sending shockwaves ripping through the area. Even though the Black Fox pushes forward with overwhelming strength, Juan's counterattack sends him flying back. When the dust settles, Juan is the one left standing, taking back his spirit weapon from the red-haired man. A moment later, a huge blue slash of energy tears across the field, scattering the last of their foes. As Mino stands there, watching the whole scene in amazement, she finally calls out his name. When he turns to her, she steps forward and asks what his true identity is. He just says she already knows. Then he points out that she's lost her memory too, which makes her a bit uncomfortable. She quickly changes the subject, demanding he return her precious stone. However, he casually mentions that he lost it. Her voice gets sharp as she asks how he could lose something so valuable, but he just tells her she should look for it herself. Later, Mino does just that, turning over every rock and leaf. But the stone is nowhere to be found, making her regret giving it to a stranger. Meanwhile, our boy watches her, repeating that she already knows who he is. When she keeps pressing him, he finally tells her he's a human. She just stares at him, asking if he's being serious. In return, he asks if she herself is human. After she says yes, he tells her that's all he needs to know. She sits down beside him, thinking to herself that maybe he's right. Maybe it's enough that they are both human. The next morning, Mino asks Juan if he really doesn't remember anything about coming to Chaos or even being in the Great Realm. When he confirms he doesn't, she admits she's envious of him. She explains that most people here feel that way because their arrival is always linked to memories they'd do anything to forget. He flips the question around, asking how she ended up here. She immediately stops walking and warns him he'll regret asking that. A little while later, they arrive at Gorgon Fortress. As they enter, Juan notices a circular shape on the ground. He realizes it looks exactly like a summoning circle from the tower's first floor. As he gets closer, a red light begins to glow. A crowd of terrified people suddenly appears inside it, screaming and begging for help. Mino barely glances at them, simply noting how many people have arrived at once. She mentions that's how she came to Chaos too and warns him never to ask anyone here about their arrival. Then she welcomes him to Chaos, the world of the dead. Juan begins to connect the dots. He realizes that those who die in the Great Realm are either chosen by the gods of the Abyss or by the masters of the Great Realm. The chosen ones can find glory in battle, but most fail. They end up here in Chaos, which is the stem of the Tree of Illusions. Next, Mino explains that if you die again in Chaos, it's a permanent death. Your soul is absorbed by the Tree of Illusions for nutrients, and those who die here don't bleed since they were already dead to begin with. Our hero finally understands. He's been living among the dead. Mino adds that the Nightmare Towers are the roots, Chaos is the stem, and the Abyss is the branches. These are all different parts of the Tree of Illusions. Hearing this, Juan remembers something Mulak said, that the roots only exist to support the very top of the tree. He realizes he's in the right place to start his climb, and now his goal is to reach that higher place. Not long after, soldiers in uniform rush in and take control, ordering the newcomers to form a line and proceed to the speech hall. An officer hands out clothes, singling out one man for being too skinny. Mino approaches the officer, James, who questions what she was doing at the north checkpoint. She says she was just passing by and wants entry. However, he tells her that under the new rules, everyone needs a certificate. She turns to Juan and asks if he has one. Surprisingly, he nods. A light bulb seems to go off in her head, and she quickly tells James that she must have forgotten her certificate. Thinking fast, she pulls out a 2-horned beast horn. "Will this do?" she asks with a hopeful smile. After a quick glance, James gives a greedy nod. Next, James turns to Jaewon, demanding his certificate. But our hero just bluntly says he doesn't have one. Mino tries to hint she could smooth things over. Ha ha! But James cuts her off, barking that no papers means no entry. Jaewon just nods and starts rummaging through his backpack. And this simple action sends Mino into a full-blown panic. She's convinced he's about to slaughter the guards to get in, so she immediately jumps right between our hero and James. She's a nervous wreck trying to explain the situation. But a powerful voice suddenly cuts through the chaos. "What's all this commotion?" Every soldier snaps to attention as a man in a crisp uniform appears. It's Chief Carlton, the guy in charge of this whole checkpoint. He marches right up to James, demanding to know what's going on. James nervously points at Jaewon, saying he tried to enter without a certificate. Carlton doesn't even blink. He states that without proper ID entry is absolutely forbidden. He backs up James, saying the guards have every right to refuse him. He then starts quoting Fortress Law from memory. Al-Hordays, a skill called Legal Code, activates, forcing everyone around him to their knees. He even mentions something called the Restraint Act. But Jaewon isn't having any of it. He casually swings his blade, shattering the skill's effect on himself and Mino. He cuts Carlton off, asking what's so special about these certificates anyway. The chief explains they contain your identity records and all your skill data. Jaewon's response is simple. "Then I don't need one. I'm not showing you any of that." The chief is completely baffled. His legal code skill had no effect. He decides to detain our hero right then and there. Using a skill called Silver Restraint, he summons magical chains from thin air. The chains shoot forward, trying to wrap around Jaewon, but our boy just stands there, resisting them with pure will until they shatter. Every single guard is frozen in absolute shock. "How did you do that?" Carlton demands, completely stunned. That's when our hero decides to try Mino's method, which instantly reminds her of the little bribe she gave James earlier. James, on the other hand, turns white as a sheet. He was the one who took the bribe. Jaewon calmly reaches into his bag, pulls something out, and offers it to Carlton. James starts screaming for an immediate execution, but Carlton shuts him up with a single glare. He asks Jaewon if the name on the item is his. When Jaewon confirms it, Carlton's eyes go wide. You're the messenger of the Greens," he declares. The device then scans Mino, beeping loudly. It warns that her soul corruption is past the safe limit. She needs to take her medicine and fast. Carlton gives her a stern look. You're pushing yourself too hard. Jaewon just tilts his head, completely confused. Soul corruption. What's that? As she quickly takes her medicine, Mino explains everything. It's a sickness everyone in this land called chaos suffers from. Just living here makes it get worse over time. She says that's why monster horns are so incredibly valuable. They're the only medicine that can slow the corruption down. Mino smiles, adding that thanks to him, she just got one for free. Just then, Carlton approaches Jaewon. All right, your turn, he says, pulling out the scanner. The machine's light flashes green, then orange, then a blaring red, but then the reading completely fails. A moment later, the number on the display plummets straight to 0. Both Carlton and James are speechless. Carlton hands the soul stone back to Jaewon. Don't you want this? Our hero asks. The chief just calls him the messenger again, warning him to never part with such a treasure so easily. Our protagonist just shakes his head. I'm not a messenger, and I'm not one of the Greens. I know, Carlton replies with a mysterious look. A little later, Mino and our hero are finally walking into the fortress. James watches them go, asking his chief if that was really a good idea. The captain turns to him with a serious expression. Do you have any idea what that soul stone actually is? James answers that it's super valuable and boosts a person's spiritual power. But Carlton tells him there's much more to it than that. He removes his glove, revealing a badly burned hand. This was the result of just holding the stone Jaewon gave him. He explains that only a true green can handle a soul stone. Anyone else would be consumed by its overwhelming power. He notes that Jaewon doesn't look like a green at all, and yet he held the stone without any problems. So, you trust him? James asks. I don't trust the man. Carlton admits, I trust his soul. He says the scanner never makes a mistake. The only time it fails is when it encounters a soul that's completely pure. He declares that our protagonist has the purest soul in all of chaos. So it doesn't matter if he's a green or not. All that matters is that he's someone who can handle that stone. James then asks if this could be related to their master's condition. The captain simply says he doesn't know for sure. But then he casually mentions hearing rumors about a guard at the gate taking bribes. As yes, James freezes solid. He's been caught. Meanwhile, inside the walls, our hero thinks about what a hassle it was to get Mino in. He remembers Carlton reading her the riot act. The chief told her she was only getting in because Jaewon vouched for her and warned her to never, ever try bribery again. The chief then assured Jaewon that she would recover soon. Once they reach a bridge, our hero asks a passerby about a good blacksmith. Shkeshir, someone who can work on his spirit sword. But the stranger just scoffs, doubting anyone that skilled exists here. As he shows off his incredible spirit sword, someone lurking under the bridge spots him with a wicked grin. A little later, Mino is feeling much better. She realizes they're already deep inside the city. That's when Jaewon tells her it's time for them to part ways. She freezes, completely shocked. What do you mean by that? She yells for him to wait, accusing him of just ditching her. She runs after him, asking if he's still mad about the gate incident. He calmly tells her that her job was just to get him to the fortress. From this point on, she'd only slow him down. Ouch. You and I are on different paths, he states simply. But Mino isn't giving up. She chases him, arguing that he doesn't know the city and is going to get lost. He replies that he can just ask someone for directions. You should be asking me, she yells back. I know this place better than anyone. That's when our hero finally reveals his goal. He's looking for a dream demon. Mino's eyes light up. She says she might know where to find one and offers to be his guide. Our protagonist agrees to her offer. But first, he says, they have to deal with a little problem. Up ahead, a shady-looking group of men blocks their path. One of them points, there they are. So they immediately start asking about the spirit sword. Mino steps forward, warning them to back off before they get hurt. The men just laugh at her. Hey, watch your language. One says, our youngest here is only turning 12. They demand the spirit sword as a toll, or they'll let their kid brother handle things. But our hero silences them all with a single bored expression. The leader steps up, warning him that handing over the sword is his only way out of this unscathed. But before he can finish his big talk, Mino shouts right back, pointing to their little brother, who's actually built like a mountain. He completely ignores her, and the huge guy stomps forward, hoisting his axe. But our hero's sword is faster, slicing off the giant's arm in a clean sweep. Jaewon coolly tells the rest, if you're going to fight, let's get on with it. one of the men just explodes with outrage. Another guy screams that he cut off their baby brother's hand, while a third vows they'll never forgive him for this. The whole gang rushes in, and our swordsman makes quick work of every single one. Jae-won casually wipes his blade clean, leaving Mino staring in disbelief, unable to process how he won with just stabs. He simply explains that stabbing is the only move he knows, which somehow only makes her even more confused. She blinks, thinking he must be joking with her. But then he seriously starts listing his different techniques: the light stab, the normal stab, and the strong stab. This just makes everything stranger. The whole thing reminds her of another person who relied on a single technique, though that guy specialized in slashing instead of stabbing. She then asks why he missed his earlier attack and blew up the roof. She figures he just lost control, but he explains he sensed someone using a stealth skill nearby and blasted the roof on purpose to scare them away. Mino asks if destroying roofs is his usual way of intimidating people. He just shrugs, genuinely wondering if that's not what everyone does. Trying to be helpful, Mino starts suggesting flashy names for his stabbing skill, but he just ignores her and keeps on walking. She doesn't give up, rattling off more names as they go, but our hero just tells her to focus on walking clearly, not interested in rebranding his move. At last they arrive at the Twilight Smithy. Mino casually mentions that the place is owned by a dream demon. She leads him to a massive reinforced door where a worker tells them any requests will have to wait since the main workshop manager is out. Only the vice manager is around, and he's busy giving a test to the other workers. Inside, a huge man stands at a table surrounded by apprentices where a sword made from a quad horn rests. This man, Michael Garnard, is the smithy's vice manager. He explains that the sword is almost done, but they still need to drill a hole through the hilt to finish it. All the apprentices eagerly volunteer to prove their worth, but he warns them it's nearly impossible to even leave a mark on the material. He then makes a tempting offer: whoever pulls it off gets to be the vice manager for the entire day. One by one, they all try their best, but none of them succeed, and one guy even breaks his tool. Michael mocks the group, calling them weak and useless. More attempts fail, and then the worker from outside steps up to try. But just as he does, Jae-won quietly slips into the workshop. The worker instantly starts shouting, telling him no one is allowed to just wander in like that. This gets Michael's attention, and he turns to see Jae-won. Our main character steps up and says he'd like to give it a shot. The other workers start whispering, guessing he might be a traveling blacksmith. Michael scoffs, convinced he'll fail just like the others. Jae-won just calmly asks, so should I make the hole or not? But the vice manager launches into another lecture on how incredibly tough quad horns are. He claims it's not that his workers are bad, but that his own skills are just on a different level. Before he can even finish his monologue, Jae-won simply taps the hilt with one finger. Instantly, the sword cracks and shatters into pieces. The entire room is stunned into silence. Michael then erupts, screaming that Jae-won is insane for destroying such a valuable item and demanding to know what he'll tell the client. Jae-won replies that he was actually holding back and that shattering it completely would have been much easier. Then he just shrugs and offers a casual, "My bad." This does nothing to calm the vice manager down, who yells that sorry won't fix a one-of-a-kind item. That's when Jae-won pulls another horn from his bag, and everyone recognizes it as a much rarer pentahorn. Michael takes a closer look and realizes it's a horn from a gran. The workshop goes completely silent. When Jae-won asks if this will work as a replacement, Michael can only nod. With the tables completely turned, our hero asks if he can borrow the smithy for a little while. Michael immediately orders his workers to shut the doors. Seeing everything is under control, Mino decides to head out. Meanwhile, Michael starts giving Jae-won the grand tour of the Twilight Smithy. He even makes good on his promise, naming Jae-won the vice manager for the day and telling him to use whatever he needs. Our protagonist nods, holding up the grand horn, as a curious Michael asks where he found it. Jae-won simply says he hunted the pentahorn all by himself, an explanation that Michael absolutely does not believe for a second. Then Jae-won asks for some help, admitting it's his first time making a sheath. The vice manager is baffled, asking if he seriously intends to use that precious material for a simple sheath. But then Jae-won reveals his weapon and Michael's eyes go wide. It looks just like a replica of the Frost Dragon sword, but as he reaches for the grand horn, the sword comes alive, absorbing the horn completely. In that instant, Michael realizes it's a true spirit weapon containing the aura of a high-ranking race. The sword begins to transform right before their eyes, evolving into a new shape. When the process is over, the horn has vanished. Our hero just says, "I have another one," and pulls out a second horn from a 5-horned beast. Jae-won then asks for his first task as temporary vice manager, saying he wants to observe Michael's smithing style. The blacksmith asks if he has a specific design in mind, but Jae-won tells him to decide for himself. Michael finally introduces himself properly and vows to create his greatest masterpiece ever for Jaewon. Meanwhile, in a much fancier setting, Jürgen Schwer, the Prime Minister of Gorgon, enjoys a drink, his gaze locked on a man kneeling before him. The man is trying to explain how he lost their target after the Backstreet Gangster massacre. Jürgen narrows his eyes, asking how a target could just disappear into thin air. His subordinate can only admit that he has no clue. He explains that one moment everything was fine and the next everything went completely black. When he came to, he was on a random rooftop with a huge gap in his memory. Jürgen asks if the target might have spotted him, and then it all clicks. This mysterious person must have seen through a master-level stealth skill, meaning they're facing a seriously powerful opponent. He concludes their target must be at minimum a 5th stage adapter. With this new information, he orders a full-scale search of the city, demanding more people, more alertness, and absolutely no mistakes. The hooded man bows in agreement and quickly disappears, leaving the Prime Minister alone with his thoughts. The ground trembles with a low growl. His grip on the glass tightens as he whispers, "My lord, please, just wait." Meanwhile, in a rowdy tavern, a floating screen is playing Siren's Top 10. She announces it's time for the grand finale. The footage starts to roll. It's the legendary solo clear of the 99th floor. A lone figure zips by so fast he's just a blur. "Man, whatever happened to that guy?" One patron wonders, while another jokes, "You know the lords all adored him." That's when someone else chimes in with the latest juicy gossip. Apparently, the tower's entire cultivation system was shut down. The demon running it was caught trying to rig the whole thing. His friend bursts out laughing, "I heard he just ditched everything and ran for the hills." And now tons of people think that video is a complete fake. They start arguing about why anyone would trash a first-generation tower built on loans. One guy insists the demon must be some spoiled brat, while the other jokes he would have sold it at a bargain price. He calls for another beer, and as the bartender pours, the room goes dead silent as the door slams open. Every single eye turns to watch Mino make her entrance. Tall, with a fiery presence, she strides directly to the counter. She takes a seat, but before anyone can say a word, a guy approaches telling her how pretty she is. He tries to flirt, but she is clearly not interested. With a sharp glare and a pulse of dark energy, she tells him to get lost, and he backs away real fast. Still fuming, Mino mutters about how awful she feels. She tosses a gold coin on the bar, demanding enough booze to knock her out cold. A little later, she suddenly starts yelling about Juan, venting about how ridiculously full of himself he is. Our boy's name is on repeat as she rants until the bartender sighs, saying everyone's heard enough about him for one night. That's when Claire, the tavern owner, finally steps in. She asks Mino why she's being so over the top when she's not even tipsy yet, and questions why she hangs around someone she supposedly hates so much. Mino snaps back that it's not like that at all, Fantakur, but she admits that every time she sees Juan, something just ignites inside her. She flashes back to our protagonist walking into total chaos, sword-swinging and destroying everything in sight without a hint of hesitation. She just can't shake the memory of his gaze or his words echoing in her mind. "We are different." Mino points out that everyone else, including Claire, has to fight just to survive. But this guy, he just appeared out of nowhere. She remembers asking him what he would do if he faced a real nightmare. And all Juan said was, "There's no point explaining. You wouldn't understand." She complains that he always brushes her aside and looks down on people. Claire sighs, patting her head, and says, "Our hero is just immature." Then she warns Mino to keep her distance. Mino tries to argue, but Claire's expression hardens. "Sticking with someone like that isn't brave," she says firmly. "It's reckless. If you keep playing with fire, you're going to get burned." Before Mino can even reply, the doorway flashes with a brilliant light. A blazing streak cuts through the air, heading straight for the counter. She spins around just in time to catch a glowing golden bird, which drops a sealed letter right into her hands. Mino glances at the wax seal and knows it's from Carlton Javier. It's addressed to the mind of the dark forest. She wonders why he'd contact her, but before she can open it, a massive figure steps out from the crowd. He locks eyes with her and asks, "Are you the Witch of Massacre Ears?" Her eyes widen as his sharp-clawed hand shoots out and grabs her wrist. Mino just smirks, admitting that's her title. But the man yanks her closer. "I have a job for you," he growls, "and you're going to listen whether you like it or not." Elsewhere at Twilight's Fall, the very ground shakes. An explosion of energy blasts outward, sending rubble flying everywhere. As Michael is hurled backward, a booming voice roars through the chaos, warning him, "You are forbidden from entering this place." Michael struggles to lift his head, dazed and shaken. That's when he sees a monstrous figure rising before him. a terrifying beast with such an overwhelming presence. He's completely frozen. Before he can even process what's happening, Juan's voice cuts through the air. Our protagonist looks down at him. You were supposed to be smelting the sword. If you want to help, then do your job. Michael hammers against the horn again and again, but no matter how hard he hits, he doesn't even leave a scratch. He finally has to admit the truth. The item's level is way too high for him to handle. Juan shakes his head. This isn't about levels at all. Chichut, before the craftsman can react, our boy grabs his head, Mazozao, and forces the first stage of awakening to ignite within him doubt. Then without a pause, he shoves him into the second stage, understanding. This opens Michael's eyes to what is truly standing before him. The horn in front of them suddenly starts leaking a bizarre substance. Michael stumbles back as a black mist spills out, flooding the air. Out of the darkness, a pentahorn slowly takes form. It crashes to the ground with so much force that the earth splits open all around Michael and our protagonist. The fighter shouts at him, "Get it together. If you're going to do anything, then actually fight." Michael stares at the beast, shocked to realize this is its true form. He starts wondering why he ever wasted his time with such pointless little skills against it. It feels so surreal he convinces himself it has to be a dream. If he can just wake up, all of this will disappear. Muttering to himself, he makes a mad dash for the door. But the pentahorn's massive shadow and the sound of our boy's voice make his legs lock up, freezing him on the spot. Juan takes a deep breath, getting ready to make his move. And in a sudden blur, Michael bursts through the doorway instead, screaming for help. Esakurar, Parisuro. He stops cold when he finds himself facing an endless sea of undead creatures, all calling him Vice Manager. In the hall, a giant eye appears, staring right at him. "You are not even qualified to look at this place?" It booms. Then the ground splits apart, throwing him backwards, stunned and confused. Our protagonist doesn't give him a moment to recover. Grabbing Michael's hammer, he charges forward and smashes it down on the pentahorn's horn, using the chance to get in close. He darts into striking range, easily slipping past its snapping jaws. And when the beast lunges again, he's already there, driving his fist forward into its face with all his might. The battle explodes in a wave of sound, and Michael's roar joins the chaos as the fight rages. Later, back outside, Michael asks if Juan is just going to leave. The other simply replies, "My role here is finished." Michael suggests a name for the sword, Doc Bull. When our hero asks if it means lone hero, Michael just grins, saying it's perfect, and walks away. The group says their goodbyes, but just as he's leaving, Michael shouts out one last question, wanting to know what he looked like in Jae-Hwan's original world. Jae-Hwan glances back, his answer simple, human. As he continues on, he realizes Mino is tailing him. She playfully asks if he's worried she's up to no good. He asks her straight up if that's the case. Her response is just as blunt. "My plan is to kill you." Not a flicker of fear crosses his face. He just calmly asks what she'd get out of it. She closes the distance between them, holding out a small bundle. It's a fresh set of clothes, partly an apology and partly because she's sick of his current look. "So, what now?" she asks, since his plan to track the dream demon failed. Our hero replies that Michael mentioned a method, a way to find its trail. And once he finds it, his destination is set. He'll head for the Tree of Imagery to search for the entrance to the abyss. She can't believe it. Why go to such lengths? He just turns the question back on her, asking if she truly wants to know. Mino warns him that anyone who returns from the abyss is branded a warrior for life. Our protagonist's reply is chilling. "I don't plan on coming back." A wave of unease washes over her. Who does he think he is to say something so reckless? She erupts, accusing him of only thinking about himself, of just bulldozing forward, careless and cold. It's worse than that, she says. He doesn't even see the people here as real humans. "We may not be as strong or brave as you," she yells, "but we are still human, just like me." Jae-Hwan thinks back on his time with her. Activating his awakening skill, a message appears above her head. It's a threat warning her not to try anything funny or an old woman's life would be forfeit. So they're using hostages to control her. As a hooded figure watches from the shadows, our hero weighs his options. Is saving the hostage worth the risk he decides against it? It's pointless. His suspicion skill reveals the grim truth of this world, a place where numbers and data are everything, where people would sell their very souls just to raise those numbers. With his mind made up, our hero turns his back on Mino and resumes his hunt for the dream demon alone. But suddenly, she shatters the wall beside them. Reaching out a hand, she declares, "We're done." She refuses to follow someone with a goal like his. Jae-Hwan just watches as she walks away. For the first time, he thinks to himself, Right now, she seems truly human. A moment later, his awakening skill picks up the cloaked figures, muttering. He's cursing Mino for her betrayal, revealing they brought the dream demon here for nothing. A jolt of excitement runs through our hero, so they have a dream demon right here with them. Meanwhile, Mino makes her way through the lonely streets. After a while, she arrives at a tavern. Pushing the door open, she steps inside and apologizes to someone for being late. A man's voice replies. Inside, Claire is being held hostage. A man named Ja, the eldest of 3 brothers, demands to know why Mino is alone and why their deal is off. She tells him plainly that the person he's waiting for isn't coming. His goal, she says, is to destroy this world, and in a flash, she lunges forward to attack. Lances of pure light shoot toward him, but Ja just laughs, calling her a fool, as shadowy figures emerge at his side. One leaps at her, but she blocks only to be sent flying across the room. Ja orders his men to grab her, but she warns them that if they do, they'll be hunted by the entire dark forest. Ja just scoffs. There are no branches of the forest here to stop them. He sneers that both she and Claire will be dead long before anyone knows what happened. Blue energy explodes from her hand, forming 7 glowing pink spears that spin in unison. The 7 daggers of Aram. She attacks, but Ja blocks it easily, mocking her pathetic tricks. As he hesitates, her mind drifts back to a question Jaehwan once asked. Would she return to the past? Yes, she thinks. If it meant meeting him all over again, she would. Ja raises his weapon for the final blow. She wonders if she'll live to see the world fall. But before his attack can land, it's blocked. Jaehwan has arrived. She stares in disbelief. Why are you here? His deadpan answer, the clothes you gave me didn't fit. Is that really the only reason? She asks, stunned. Our hero grips his sword tightly. Do you have the nightmare? He demands. Bring it to me, now. The surrounding enemies start whispering amongst themselves. One of them wonders if he's completely lost his mind. Another remembers the rumors, that this is the man who defied the fortress itself. Surely he can't be sane. Mino quickly warns him. These guys are 4th stage adapters. You can't afford to underestimate them no matter how strong you are. But even as she says it, a part of her knows she doesn't believe he can lose. Ja charges forward with 2 of his lackeys shouting that they're about to teach him a lesson. But our protagonist meets their charge head-on. His blade flashes out in a single fluid motion, and he sidesteps the next attack as if it were in slow motion. His attackers freeze in utter disbelief. He's supposed to be a non-adapter, one stammers. Could he truly be the legendary warrior of the abyss? And Ja tries to rationalize it. A 4th stage adapter should be on this level. But even the beast they fought before had managed to take a hit like that. Suddenly, Claire cries out in pain. One of the thugs tells his partner to finish it, striking the poor girl to shut her up. Mino's head whips toward Claire. Hold on just a little longer, she cries out. We'll save you, I promise. She then looks Jaehwan dead in the eyes. Can you do this? He wonders why she's asking. He's only here for the nightmare, but he still shouts for them to bring it on. Skeletal minions surge forward at his command, while Ja roars for them to move faster. Jaehwan raises his glowing blade to the heavens. A brilliant pillar of blue light erupts into the sky. Miles away, soldiers spot the beacon, and Carlton orders his men to move out. Back at the tavern, a man bursts in screaming, "The barrier is broken!" Ja shouts orders to surround the building, and his men scramble to form a perimeter. Just then, an armored squad storms the entrance. Carlton steps forward, calling out Jaehwan's name. Our hero just smirks. Perfect timing. He points a finger at the enemy group, accusing them of violating Gorgon Article 276, Paragraph 4, by using the tavern as a base for world destruction activities. Ja immediately fires back with his own accusation, but Carlton isn't having it, citing Gorgon Articles 174 and 124. For illegal property destruction and kidnapping, he declares, "You are all hereby placed under emergency restriction." In a flash, chains erupt from the shadows, ensnaring the entire enemy squad. Carlton's voice rings out, warning them that resistance is futile. But Jana just scoffs and charges forward anyway. Steel clangs against steel until a sickening crack echoes as the knight's weapon splinters. Carlton shoves him back, forcing the knight to leap away and call for his ally. He swings his broken weapon down again, but more chains whip out, wrapping him tight and slamming him into the ground. Gasping for air, he finally surrenders. Carlton calls it a wise choice, but Ja just smirks, calling him naive, before tossing out a black sphere that explodes into thick, choking smoke. From a distance, a man with purple hair watches the chaos unfold in silence. Another voice calls out in alarm, warning that the youngest has already inhaled the black clouds. A masked man cradles his injured comrade, scolding him for not wearing his mask properly. He pleads with him to hold on, hoping a small amount can still be survived. Another masked figure whirls around, seething with anger, accusing him of unleashing the black clouds without Ark's permission. He demands to know if capturing the Witch of Massacre was really worth such a catastrophic risk. Black Sirlang, the elder of Gumchin Bang, wonders if she's truly that dangerous, but the man shakes his head, replying that it isn't her. The real problem is Carlton. Sirlang's eyes gleam with malice, saying that breathing in the black cloud serves him right. He then points as Juan emerges from the tavern, supporting Mino, asking, "And who is that?" Meanwhile, Ja can only stare, completely baffled. How could anyone possibly walk away from the black clouds totally unharmed? He admits he's never seen one of the greens without antennae. As their group approaches, our hero feels a prickle of unease and draws his blade. Channeling Garnak's power through his sheath, he unleashes a powerful wave of energy at his foes. The force of the blast sends some stumbling backward, while others are thrown completely off their feet. Riding that surge of power, our hero presses his attack, striking down several opponents in an instant. Seeing this, Sirlang panics and flees, screaming for Ya to deal with him. Janna curses the fleeing elder, then glances at his fallen comrades. Juan closes the distance, his voice cold, offering only one choice. "Tell me where the dream demon is, now." At the mention of that name, Ja's expression darkens. A chilling warning escapes his lips. "If they find out I talked, I'll wish for a death that will never come." Seeing no other way out, Ja pulls out a stone of fallen souls. Our protagonist has seen stones like that before, clutched in the hands of the townsfolk. He remembers Mino explaining they weren't drugs, but a way to slow the corruption that eats away at the soul. But as Ja uses it, his body convulses violently. Uncontrolled power rips through him, twisting his flesh and reshaping his bones until a monster stands where he once stood. An undead beast rises, charging through the streets with terrifying strength, cutting down everyone in its path. Now transformed, Ja can see the world for what it truly is. As he takes it all in, a single thought crosses his mind. What was he ever so afraid of? Realizing he can do anything he wants, he sends his tentacles lashing out at our boy. But when he sees Juan as human, he stops confused. How can a mere human exist in this world? Meanwhile, our hero can't see Ja's true nature, but he senses something is deeply wrong. Shaking it off, he focuses on the enemy. With his spirit sword, he strikes Ja down in a single flash. In his final moments, a vision of his past life flickers before Ja's eyes. Then his body disperses into the air, leaving our protagonist to hope the others in the tavern have the answers he needs. Mino weakly warns Juan not to get any closer, but he just stares back his eyes, noticing the clear signs of her sickness. Before another word is spoken, a masked man bursts into the room, calling out to Carlton. From the ground, Carlton immediately orders him to alert the inner forces. At the same time, Mino turns to our boy with desperate eyes and begs him, "Kill me." She pleads again, insisting, "Do it while I'm still myself." Our protagonist studies her. She's human, he's sure of it. So why doesn't his oblivion skill work on her? It makes no sense. He reminds himself that emotions are a luxury he can't afford on his path. He won't hesitate. But just as he raises his hand to act, a voice cries out for him to wait. Claire rushes in and grabs his wrist, insisting there might still be time. They have to get Mino to the medical facility immediately. He asks if she can even be saved, but the answer is grim. If the corruption continues to spread, her chances of survival are almost non-existent. Before he can respond, an alarm blares throughout the fortress. A message from the Four Gorgons. An undead has been discovered inside. All personnel must evacuate immediately. Fear spreads like wildfire as people panic and scream. Then a man in a hat appears, his features twisted into something monstrous that proves he is no longer human. The creature lunges, snatching a terrified citizen as another one charges into the area. A man in a red robe then steps in, moving to annihilate the undead. Inside the medical facility, Claire turns to Juan and wonders aloud if he's the man Mino mentioned, the one who ignores every rule, judges by his own standards, and decides for himself what it means to be human. She says she knows his type because she's seen it before. She explains that the people here haven't adapted simply because they were never given the choice to. Our hero replies flatly that it's because they lack courage. But when she presses him, asking, "Courage for what?" he says nothing. Instead, she tells him there's only one thing he must do: leave. She warns that his very presence puts everyone in danger and that she can't stand people like him. Her cold words strike a nerve, causing painful memories of past hardships to surface in his mind. While this happens, a guard asks how much medicine they have left for Carlton. The answer is dire. Most of it was used just to calm him down. James instantly demands they bring every last drop, sending the medics scrambling. Juan watches as the last of the medicine is administered. But even as the medic works furiously, it does nothing to stop the corruption. All they can do is desperately beg the chief to hold on. Our protagonist finally demands to know if there's any way to bring someone back after they've turned into an undead. But James just snaps back in frustration. If I had that answer, do you think I'd be wasting my time here doing this? Ignoring the angry outburst, Juan grabs Carlton's shoulder and tells him to wake up, that there's something he needs to ask. He doesn't stop even as James shouts at him. To everyone's shock, Carlton stirs. He looks up, recognizes Juan, and grips his hand with what's left of his strength. He has one last favor to ask to be killed. He insists our boy is the only one who can do it, but Juan simply asks, "Why aren't you asking me to save you instead?" Carlton tries to explain that it's just the law for those losing their soul, but then his corruption meter skyrockets to 94%. Just then a man steps forward, his blade already drawn. It's Jahir, the chief exterminator of the Great Dead Man Extinction Force, and a powerful 5th stage adapter. James frantically yells for him to wait, but Jahir pays him no mind, coldly announcing that under Article 1, Paragraph 4 of the Gorgon Special Act, Carlton will be executed on the spot. So a little background on this world of chaos. It's a spiritual realm. Most people here can't handle the endless flow of time and eventually lose their memories, turning into monsters called the undead. They have to take special pills just to stay sane. If they skip a dose, the risk is enormous. Even the weakest undead is as strong as a 3-horned beast. Whenever this happens, all 4 fortresses have one simple rule: take the undead down. Back in the tent, Jahir bids a final grim farewell to Inspector Carlton Javier. But just as he swings his blade, Jawan catches it with his bare hand, leaving everyone completely stunned. Jahir stresses how urgent this is. Carlton is a 5th stage adapter. If a man that powerful turns into a monster, the results would be catastrophic. Hearing this, our protagonist calmly offers the horn of a 5-horned beast. A nearby officer is shocked, wondering how he could possibly have such a rare item. In a total power move, our hero crushes the supposedly indestructible horn with his hand and feeds the pieces to Carlton and Mino. Everyone watches in disbelief. James is so relieved he's on the verge of tears, seeing the contamination finally being controlled. But Mino's body is too weak. Despite the medicine, her contamination shoots up to 95%. Seeing this, Jahir decides he has to eliminate her immediately. Claire protests, insisting they wait for a doctor who can perform the undead slash. Jawan, of course, has never heard of it. A guard mentions the doctor is busy with the fortress master and that they can't just summon the divine physician for such a small problem. As Jahir moves to strike Mino, our boy blocks his path, stating that since she asked him to do it, he should be the one. Once Jahir steps aside, Jawan activates his suspicion technique. Suddenly he's bathed in a brilliant light and whisked away to another realm, an endless, infinite white space. He sees Mino on a bed, being watched by a little old man who wonders aloud who could have done such a thing to his dear Mino. The old man spots Jawan and is completely stunned that someone else entered this realm. He senses that our hero's soul is pure, but a little petty. Meanwhile, Jawan finds his suspicion skill can't read the man at all. For all he knows, this guy could be the source of the problem. Our protagonist attacks, and the little man instantly parries with a slash of his own. Both are astonished when the other blocks their attack. In the next moment, Jawan's strike shatters the old man's blade, a sword made from the crown of a 4-horned beast. Just like that, they're both back in the real world. Seeing the old man crying, Jawan casually remarks that he's pretty sure he broke the sword himself. It turns out this little old man is Chung-Ho, the Doctor of Doom, also known as the Divine Physician. Jawan remembers he was supposed to be at the castle, but Chung-Ho just says he doesn't care about that. He simply couldn't let a beauty like Mino die. Furious, Chung-Ho blames our boy for messing up the undead slash and breaking his sword, which means he can no longer save Mino. But then the doctor's eyes fall on our hero's spirit sword and his mood completely flips. He's instantly excited, gushing over its amazing appearance. Our boy grabs his arm and asks if he can save Mino by using this sword. Chung-Ho is completely confident, though he's amazed anyone would lend a priceless sword to a stranger. Taking the sword, he marvels at its power, which feels so similar to its owners. Then the sheath itself begins to glow, and the doctor gets giddy with excitement to show off his skills. The doctor uses a technique that looks a lot like our boy's own suspicion skill to see the true nature of things. But before he can finish the undead slash, the doctor collapses. He's out of mana. The despair on his face says it all. To make matters worse, the spiritual realm they're in begins to fall apart. They are almost out of time, and the doctor's sketch of Mino starts to fade. However, our protagonist grips his blade. This makes Chung-ho uneasy as he's certain no one can copy his unique technique. Our hero ignores him and decides to try his best even if it is just an imitation. The doctor insists it's useless, that you can't just copy a spell after seeing it once. He scolds our boy for even trying something the average person couldn't possibly imagine. Jaewon isn't really a sword expert, but he thinks the old man is just being loud. He asks him to be quiet so he can concentrate and begins to draw his own sketch of Mino. Moving across the canvas, he remembers her mischievous nature, her warmth, her trusting gaze, and every little impression she left on him. He skillfully draws her, even adding the small mole beneath her eye. Suddenly, a familiar voice says she's grateful he got her mole right. It's Mino smiling at him from the bed. They're all back in the real world. Her contamination level is dropping, and the transformation has stopped. Claire rushes over to Mino, anxiously asking if she's all right. Chung-ho then notes that some of our boy's petty energy has faded, though he still acts like a 10-year-old. He demands to know who Jaewon is and where he possibly learned the undead slash. Jahir is still doubtful that our protagonist could have copied the physician's technique, but the old man confirms it. He explains that one must be awakened to learn a skill like that, just like him. The awakened, he explains, are individuals unaffected by the system's rules whose actions can disrupt the very balance of chaos. Only a tiny handful of players in the entire Great Realm have ever reached such a state. Jahir needs to confirm this immediately. If Jaewon is truly an awakened player, then there might be hope for saving the Fortress Master. That is now their top priority. Suddenly, men authorized by the Inner Circle storm into the tent, led by the captain of the Dark Soul unit, a 5th stage adapter, and the head guardian of the Prime Minister. Jahir was completely baffled. The Dark Soul unit had absolutely nothing to do with the undead. Then the captain suddenly dropped to one knee before our hero, calling him the Messenger of the Greens. The doctor and Jahir stared in disbelief. Jaewon looked nothing like a messenger from Nakmong. But the Dark Soul captain insists on an escort to the castle. And waiting for him, there is the Prime Minister himself, Jurgen, ready to greet our hero. Jaewon keeps it simple, offering only his first name. The Prime Minister lets out a chuckle, remarking that our boy is just as quiet as Chung-ho. He then asked if our protagonist was truly a representative of the Greens. Without missing a beat, our hero shook his head, leaving the captain completely stunned. At that moment, the doctor pointed out that our boy could handle the Stones of Fallen Souls, a feat only those from the Nakmong clan could perform. He demanded to know how Jaewon could do it and where he got the stones. Jaewon just shrugged, saying he found them somewhere and never had a problem with them. Captain Jahir, his curiosity now piqued, asked what became of the stones' original owners. Jaewon didn't hide a thing, revealing that they were dead. Jahir was shocked. He stammered that those individuals were members of the Great Realm's most powerful families. Our